Good morning. Welcome to Brave Indigenous Conversations with Joan Jack and Issac Murdoch today. So, I would like to start by reading something written by Mickey Scott B. Jones. An invitation to a brave space. Together we will create brave space because there is no such thing as a safe space. We exist in the real world. We all carry scars and we have all caused wounds. In this space, we seek to turn down the volume of the outside world. We amplify voices that fight to be heard elsewhere, and we call each other to more truth and love. We have the right to start somewhere and continue to grow. We have the responsibility to examine what we think we know. We will not be perfect. It will not always be what we wish it to be, but it will be our brave space together, and we will work on it side by side. So, those of you that are following know who I am, and if you don't, then just Google my name and you can figure that out. But I'd like to invite you, Isaac, to introduce yourself.
Well, hello. Thank you so much for having me. Bonjour and denwe mangana duk. Mazan opkin ge go na be indishnikas. Gonna be guk shabigaj wat. And don jaba. Gnoje and do dem. Nishna be nini and dao. Nimkiaj be kong ninda and gitchin and dum. Ya mom pee we ganon and guk. So I'm very happy to be here. My name is Isaac Murdoch. My traditional name that I was given a long time ago is the man who paints the rocks. I
Mhm.
also have an honorary name that is Bom Gizik. That was my great grandfather's name that was given to me by the elders in my family. I come from a place where the serpents are painted on the rocks. And of course, I am Anishinaabe. I'm Ojibwe. I am a man. And I live at a place called Nimki Ajbekong, which means Thunder Mountain. And I'm very happy to be here to be able to speak with you.
Oh, so thrilled that you accepted. You're really becoming a force of good in the world, and I'm really, really super honored that you're here. Um, I was thinking, like, I met you. We were on a bike run with Chief Derek Nepanak. I think it was 2012. It was the Treaty Freedom Ride. Um, there were other people on the ride. Chief Norman Bone, I believe Jeremy McKay was there. I can't remember everybody who was there, but there was a small group of us that rode our Harleys for 11 days through four provinces, I believe, 40 First Nation communities we went into. And Chief Nepanak and Chief Bone were carrying the embers of the treaty fire that they had lit in Treaty 2-4. And, excuse me, they wanted to reignite, and continue to burn the strength of our treaties. And we carried that. And of course, you all or don't know maybe that the 40 communities we went into, I think pretty much all of them, once you leave the highway, it's gravel road, and gravel road on the bikes is not fun. Plus, a damn Chief Nepanak, he's a bloody rainmaker. Rained, it rained 9 out of 11 days, and I don't just mean drizzled. It was like 9 out of 11 days. It was like such a reckoning. It just felt like we were It just felt like we were riding with the rain, like bringing it across the land, and just like a big collective. Oh, man. I remember at one point, one of the people, I won't say who, but one of the men, really, I really respect him. You got to go slow on the gravel and the mud and onto the reserves, and it was rainy, and he's if you don't keep your rev just perfect, you're dropping the bike, eh? Boom, he went over, and we were like, oh no,
Oh, wow.
tough ride. And that's when I met you. And we pulled into your country, and your First Nation. There's a little bridge for people who don't know where Serpent River First Nation is. There's a little bridge, and then there's in the close distance there's like an old train track bridge, and your people have written on that bridge, "This is Indian land." And so we stopped the bikes there, and we all posed up in front of that, and it was so powerful. And then we came to your camp, and so I was thinking it would be super good if you could talk about your journey and how you ended up in the camp, and what are you doing?
Well, I think the journey started way before I was even born. So I was born into an existing journey already that my mother and father had been on. And way back in time, when you look back at when our treaties were made, we had allowed the British to come into our territories, to give them free passage on the waters, to have farms and to live and to follow the natural laws, like not to dig deeper than the hand width of a shovel or an axe or something like that. There were sacred laws they had to follow. And we never relinquished our right not to live on our lands.
Mm.
And so, when I was born, like I'm like 50 freaking years old, like when I was a kid, they didn't have the freedoms that they have now. And so I seen the struggles, of people getting their cabins burnt down, and I grew up in a time when my father was he was a militant. My mother was very strong at the same time. She was an artist, and so I grew up in an environment where people were really struggling for their indigenous rights and freedoms. And so growing up as a child, I remember hearing them say so many conversations about things. And one of them was the Indian Act. And so they often said that the Indian Act was put in place to disrupt the freedom, the Debenzoin that we have as Anishinaabeg people. And that before we were a free people on the land, that we had our government, our language, we had our economy, we had our ways of being, our healthcare systems, we had everything. And that was all dependent on our freedom, because we needed to go with the ebbs and flows of the land. As an indigenous species of our ecology, freedom is very important. Mm-hmm. And so as long as we were a free people, we were going to defend our pharmacies, we were going to defend our schools on the land, we were going to defend our government, we were going to defend our language, our ways of being. And so the Indian Act was put in place on purpose to strategically filter us through colonization. And so that we wouldn't be dependent on the land, but we would be more dependent on the colonial systems of power. And so I remember hearing all sorts of conversations like that. And also, I remember when the Indian agents came to my door and they kicked down the door. And I remember them, hauling us kids out. My mom's kicking and screaming, and Indian agents are there. And next thing you know, they haul us in this van. They start driving away. But they forgot one child that was hiding underneath the van. My little brother, Francis. And they ran him over by accident.
Oh, my God.
And he's been pretty much disabled ever since. And he lost his hair because of fear. There's a condition when you lose your hair when you get scared, eh? So he lost his hair. And he was really patchy all over the place. It never grew right for a long time. For decades, it never grew right. And that was an eye-opener for me to try to understand what the hell happened. Why was all of this going on? And why was being Native not good enough? So, I came to an age, my mother actually, to get us back, she had to sign papers and get an operation where she couldn't have any more babies.
Jeez.
And so she protested the Indian agent office. She, I believe she pitched a tent on the front lawn of Indian Affairs demanding her kids back. And my mother was strong, but she had to do what she had to do. She wanted us back, so she had to sign those papers to get that operation done. And I used to hear her talk often. She's gone now, but I used to hear her talk, and it made me realize that, as Anishinaabeg people, despite the fact that the Indian Act was blanketed upon us to disrupt our freedom, we still are free.
Yeah.
We never surrendered the right to live on our lands. We never surrendered the right to speak our languages. We never surrendered the right to educate our children on how we want to educate them. We never surrendered the right to our own economy, and that we're still a free people. And that just because the government has thrown this upon us, it's almost like a net, you know?
Mm.
We can still wiggle out of it, and we can still be free if we work together. And so as a young man growing up, that was the biggest thing for me, was freedom. And so I studied under elders. I was a shkabewis under certain elders, and that's how I was raised. So at a certain point, of course, I wasn't in school anymore. I had to go learn from the elders. So I spent my younger years like that. And they all often talked about freedom. They said our government is to be led by the animals. You know, that the animals are the leaders of our government, and that we can't get confused, you know, and that a bird can go fly around and make a nest somewhere because it has that responsibility to do so for the new baby birds it's going to have. And that we have that same responsibility. So for us to be stuck and confined in the Indian Act and have no freedom and not being able to fly anywhere to go make a nest somewhere, it's unnatural. And so the government, you know, it works very hard at making sure that it doesn't recognize traditional governance, that it controls our economy based on programs and services, and that in order to participate in that, you have to go through colonization, loop around, and come back and participate. So you have to go to university and all of those things, which isn't a bad thing. But all of that takes us away from the land. And so, you know, but now we're seeing people say, you know what? No, I'm educated. I'm going to the land, and I'm going to go to the land, and I'm going to do what I want to do. And we're free, and we're going to reclaim our languages, you know? So I think that's so beautiful. Like, you know, it's so for me, that was a big part of my education that led me to make a whole bunch of moves, I guess, to where we are today with me and my circle. You know, they always said that, you know, the laws were going to be broken. You know, the laws meaning the treaties were going to be broken. No, giken mananek, gawin wakah mananzino on ganak nagawan in. The laws were going to be broken. And so we know that this is happening now. And I think the fight shouldn't be trying to fix them. It should be trying to fix ourselves, because we've been through so much trauma. And that the land can provide that healing for us. And so, you know, like I've barricaded, I don't know how many roads, I've occupied, I don't know how many government offices, I've done everything in my power to erase as much shit as I can. But while I was doing that, I was never building anything up. And something came to my mind where it was like, it's more powerful to build something beautiful, build something up that was taken away, than it is to tear down something ugly. And maybe I just got too old where I didn't want to be like running around protesting all over the damn place. But, you know, but a switch turned, and I jumped on the existing path that our elders had made, where they said, hey, we're free people. Go on the land and build your culture camps. So I did that for years and years, you know, building culture camps, trying to have a culture camp forever. And I was unsuccessful many times. But it wasn't until we had a whole bunch of like-minded people that could do a whole bunch of things that the others couldn't do, where we began to be able to rekindle that dream or that fire that the elders had.
Mhm.
So we started to take land back, and we started to
So
build a
where
village.
help people locate themselves to where you are? Like where is your camp located?
It's north of Elliott Lake, which
Mm,
is halfway between Sault Ste. Marie and Sudbury. And then you
mm.
go straight north.
Ah. And do you live out there all the time now, or what happens there? Tell us about the camp.
Yeah, we live out there all year round. And we do lots of language, lots of land-based stuff, of course.
Yeah.
Our elders are very beautiful, strong people. And of course, we keep improving our camp. And so we have a Wesiabwan Teg, which is our community learning center for language and traditional arts, those types of things. We have several houses now. People live there, and it's really super cool. So it's beautiful to be able to be a part of something that's so amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
How do you sustain yourselves economically there? Because that's the challenge.
I mean that's always the challenge. I mean we have gardens and there's lots of animals around there to eat and stuff. I have solar panels that power my house. I also have a pretty awesome big garden. Um, but because I'm a storyteller, people always want me to go around and tell stories.
Yeah.
So I'm able to like sustain myself as a storyteller and just go around telling old Indian stories and stuff like that. The Indians love those old time stories, so I'm always doing that all the time. And
Nice.
it provides a modest living, of course.
Yeah. And so I've seen the pictures you posted recently of the new structure that you've created, everybody's created there. And
Yeah.
like that's a lot of work and a lot of money needed. And so how do you do that?
So that one right there was actually a partnership with a whole bunch of people, and it's located in the green belt. So the green belt is a very beautiful tract of land that runs for hundreds of miles, and it's just a beautiful, scenic, amazing forest. And it's north of Toronto about an hour. And
Mm,
so we wanted to have that lodge there so
mm,
that we can educate children and young people about the environment, about becoming land and water protectors,
mm.
about their inherent rights and responsibilities. And so I was able to just get a bunch of partners together, and we were able to create that lodge.
Wow.
And it's
That's
for the
so
children. It's for the children.
yeah. Yeah. So you're creating partnerships with, the buzzword is allies. You've got allies. And so how do you do that? Because I want our people, especially, and everybody listening to the podcast, to be able to think, oh, okay, I want to be a part of that. And so how do I do that where I am? And creating the allies is hard.
Yeah, I mean, it's relationship building can be hard because lots of times allies they just don't quite get it. And I think that sometimes uh, it's just important for me anyway, is and if people know me, like I don't butter things up. I say it exactly how I see it all the time. And allies are always, like I'll go to a group of allies and tell it exactly how it needs to be said because they need to hear it. But I
Mm.
always tell them, it's not my job to fix Canada. It's not my job to stop the oppression by the Canadian government. That's your job,
Hello. Yeah.
you know? And part of your job is to support Indigenous people in their efforts to, of course, have that freedom that I
Mm.
was talking about. Why should we fight for our freedoms?
Mm.
You know, Canadians have the responsibility to make sure that we're free people.
Oh,
They have to hold their governments accountable. We can't revitalize our language, re-educate our children, rebuild our traditional structures of government, and healthcare and all this stuff and fix Canada. So it's like, no, settlers have a responsibility. And so part of that is that they have to be open for partnerships and relationships with Indigenous people. It needs that needs to happen in this day and age. And so, I spend a lot of time with my people, but every once in a while, I got to jump out there and I got to try to promote our what we need
Mm,
and create partnerships. And
mhm.
you'd be amazed how many people actually want to help
Yeah,
if somebody has a plan.
yeah, yeah,
So just bitching and complaining about something, you know, it yeah, they'll listen, yeah, they'll get it, yeah, they might start crying and all this stuff, right? But if you don't have a constructive plan for them to follow and say, okay, this is how I can help,
yeah,
then they're not going to,
yeah,
because they're always saying, well, how can we help? So
yeah,
we have to actually have a plan.
yeah,
And if we have a plan and if we can engage them, then they're able to at least help that way. So that's something that I love to do, is creating partnerships, because in this day and age with, Joan, with climate change and, you know, the loss of lands and the ecological disaster that's happening, we got to really pull our shit together and sometimes put our pride to the side and say, you know what? We're all humans. We need each other to survive, and we
yeah,
gotta we gotta pull it together enough that we can work together.
yeah.
You know.
One of the analogies, I'm sure you'll be able to relate to it, because one of the gifts, blessings that I have is that I receive, intuitive thought, and I'm like, wow, that's really good. And I usually know when it's a gift because I'm in agreement with it. I'm like, or I'm in strong disagreement. Like, I don't want to do that. You want me to do that? No way. But the
Right.
ideology comes through, and helping allies understand, the whole, yeah, we are all human, for sure. We're all human. Hello, I'm not a moose or a bear, I'm a human being. And so, but that doesn't mean I'm you, you know, that means
Right.
I'm a human being and I'm me. And so we're not all the same. And one of the analogies that came to me years ago when I was driving along in Kakapmuk territory there with Quinco Shackley, I saw the side hill. I don't know. I saw the whole side hill, and I suddenly saw the forest as a whole, because you don't usually see it unless you're in a helicopter or whatever. But that side hill view was so. I just got it that, yes, we're all human. We're all trees, and some of us are birch trees, some of us are poplar trees, some of us are spruce trees, some of us are pine trees. We're all different kinds of trees, and so I came home that time and I had that huge epiphany, and I said to my husband, Brian Watset, his Tlingit name is Watset. I said, "Oh my God, Brian!" I said, "I just saw it. Like, I just wish that human beings could be like the forest and they could all live together, and let the birch tree be the birch tree and the spruce tree be the spruce tree, and not try to make us all into like poplar trees or something." And so
Yeah.
yeah, and I said to him, I just wish people weren't mean. Like, there's no mean trees. And he said to me, oh yes there are. And I said, let's see, there's no mean trees. And he said, yeah. He said, where do you enjoy walking in the bush the most, Joan? Because I walked with my husband, well, before my knees went, I used to walk with him all the time. I thought about it and I said, on the pine flats. I love walking on the pine flats. And he said, yeah, because pine trees are mean, Joan. He said, their pine needles drop down and they kill everything around them because they want to be the only tree there. And so, but that creates a beautiful walking space because there's nothing else. It's just flat. And so,
Right on.
yeah, in Reese, I'll finish the analogy and then go back to you. Like, and then in recent discussions with an Irish man, elder friend, good friend of mine, who is really strongly believes in humanity and human rights and that we're all the same, was really resistant to. I experienced him anyway as resistant to how I see the world, where I focus on, I want to see you. Like, if you're different than me, I want to know about it. That's our worldview. Oh, that's so cool. I want to see who you are. Eh? I'm not scared by your difference than me. And so I said to him, I know what it is. You are relating to the world from the root system of the forest. And yes, we are all connected by the root system in the forest. That's where climate change, all this, the bigger issues, because the roots are all connected, and that's where the blood is. We're all, our blood is red, because we're all trees, but we all pop out of the earth as different, and that's what
Right.
the Indian Act tried to do was clear cut, clear cut all of us. You know,
That's it.
it is, yeah. Okay, what else you want to say?
Well, we'll just talk about that. Like, I think that when you have a really diverse forest, right, ecosystem,
Hmm.
you'll notice that everything is different, and everything gives everything to everything in order for it to survive.
Oh,
And the diversity is critical. You take that away, and the forest will literally die.
mm,
And so you're right. The Indian Act tried to take away the diversity of who we are as Indigenous people and make everybody the same,
mm,
because it's so much easier to destroy the land that way. And and so I always say that, you know, we need to celebrate other people's diversity too.
yeah.
And because when they sing their songs, and when they're doing their dances, they're celebrating us
Hmm.
too, and
Yeah.
because they get it. So it makes sense to celebrate and to acknowledge the diversity of who we are as human beings, and that it's important that that diversity stays strong.
Hmm.
And as Indigenous people here, we are you know, we're an ecological species of our environment,
Yes.
right? We
Yes.
have every right to be in our lands.
Yes.
No, they cannot take that away from us. We are an ecological species in our environment,
Hmm.
and with that comes responsibilities,
Yeah.
which is to respect the diversity.
Mm.
And so I believe that, I just love your analogy because that's so beautiful, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that the more and more we get that, and the more and more we kind of respect that,
Yeah.
the farther we're going to get, you
Yeah.
know?
I think that the challenging part for me is that helping allies see that, my experience as an Indigenous woman, particularly, is that I've always got people coming at me with a chainsaw, like it's really hard to stay in my truth, which is that we are all human, and that we are all love, and love is always the answer, and that's the truth. And there's somebody coming at me with a chainsaw, and so
Um, I, yeah,
go.
I totally hear it. Like, I'll do a beautiful painting or something, or I'll do something, like I'll really go out of my way, and all I hear is freaking chainsaws, It's like, settle your kettle, people, like, that's one thing that bugs me is like word police and just gatekeepers in general that just want to, like, you say one wrong thing, you do one wrong thing, like it's not even a bad thing. You just got a different opinion. Like, I come from a generation where it's just a little bit different. We come from the bush.
Uh-huh.
I can't keep up with goddamn everything. You know, I still use the word Indian.
I
So
know.
I'm like, I get people with chainsaws at me all the time. It's like, holy cow, like settle your kettle, like can we just relax a little bit here? Why is
Yeah.
everybody so on the attack?
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem right because we have a system, we have corporations, we have government officials, we have law enforcement agencies that are raising terror and horror amongst our people on their lands.
Yeah.
And nobody's saying a goddamn thing, but as soon as an Indian makes one mistake or says something that's off because
Yeah.
he's just blabbing, holy shit, the chainsaws come out.
Yeah.
Take those chainsaws over there and go bother those people. Go bother the ones that are destroying everything. You know,
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
it's like, holy shit.
I started out the podcast before we went live saying that Isaac looks exactly like my son Henry, my birth son Henry. Like Isaac could be my son. Those of you that know Henry, they're like brothers, and so um, we're also from the same family. Clearly, in our beliefs, like I get attacked by the word police too. Like I'm going to say something really rude and controversial right now, but oh well, this is my podcast. Tune out if you don't like it. And what bothers me too is this whole cultural purism that's happening in Indian country. Oh, 3 ribbons, 4 ribbons, sideways, sit there. Like, would you just piss off already? Like, I understand in ceremony for sure there are some protocols that definitely have to be respected in, like, Tobasana Katiban, like people that are, that really the ceremonial people. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the everyday people. And there's like, we've got a whole bunch of nuns and priests running around in Indian country now trying to be like the cultural police. And it's like, no, let people rediscover themselves. Create and hold space for us as Indigenous people to rediscover who we are because someone cut off my damn arm, you know? And I'm trying
Oh
to
yeah.
I'm trying to figure out how to live without an arm now, and so yeah, I get my shit in a knot, and yeah, I'm not very popular in some circles.
Well, I mean, like I remember back in the 70s, going to Sweat Lodge and seeing how it was done back then. You know, I remember the old Indian would be there, and then they'd give them tobacco and whiskey, you know, and maybe some money, and they'd go in there and they'd. It was never like 4 rounds. Sometimes it was very organic, very different. They never really had had drums. You'd be hitting the rocks with the stick, singing
Mhm.
their songs and all that, and it was different. It was different. And then
Mhm.
now today, it's like you have so many rules and so many things, and and I think that the conductor,
Mhm.
if somebody's conducting a ceremony,
Mhm.
so if I go to a ceremony and I just listen to the conductor,
Ah.
I
Mhm.
don't say a damn word,
Mhm.
because that's not my job. I'm going
Yeah,
there to pray, and the conductor is helping things along. If
yeah,
I don't like it, I don't have to go back.
there you go.
But I
Yep.
will be respectful. I
Yep.
won't say a damn peep,
Yep.
and I
And
won't badmouth them either, because
yeah,
I respect people's power and how they do things.
yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like I will not say a word, not a damn word, because that's rude. I was raised not to say nothing.
Mm.
You know, my
Yeah.
job there is to pray,
Mm.
and if I don't like it, I don't go back.
Uh, yeah.
You know,
It's like they
but
say,
just
you
to
probably heard this growing up, mano, mano, mano.
yeah,
You know, a lot of times the old people just say mano, like let it go, leave it be, you know.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And so I think at the root of what we're talking about, though, is the core of we're both Anishinaabe. Our dialect is a
yeah,
bit different. Um, but at the core, my understanding, my kindergarten understanding of, Anishinaabe law and philosophy is that you used the word earlier. It sounded different than in where I'm from, but dependent is and dependent isnin, dependent ismin, I own my and together we own each other, and
yeah.
those are the core ideas of um, what it means to be an Anishinaabe. It's not our way as an Anishinaabe to go around correcting other people. That's the path there.
No, yeah. I mean, can you imagine how draining, and just you'd have a headache all the time? Like that was your main job in life, was to correct people, and I and and it and especially on Facebook or social media, people just get brave. Christ, they get muscles, like they're just like raw, and you see them in real life, and it's like, hey, you're I could kick your ass in real life, that, eh? And it's like, but it's like, what's like, we're talking airwaves, we're talking, like the internet it's different, and I feel that people are so much more disrespectful on
Mm,
social media. They for whatever reason, if it's the platform or if it's, but they can be so disrespectful,
mm,
you know. And
yeah,
it's like, why say anything? It's like,
yeah,
if you're gonna say something bad, why?
yeah.
Like, why
It's
can't you just keep it to yourself?
the account in relationship, which I know is important to you because that's the cornerstone of our culture, is relationship, responsibility, and relationship. Those are two key principles for Anishinaabe, and so the cornerstone of that is the reciprocity, like the that we're impacting each other. Like we have a knowingness around that in our language and in our law and in our philosophy. So um, I think with the social media, what happens for our people anyway, I don't know about other people, but people, like you're saying, they move away from that truth that we are in relationship, and they somehow think they're not accountable for what they're saying or doing on social media. Um, but what I've started doing, I don't know if you do it, is when that happens to me, I hit the camera. I go to the messenger and I hit the camera. And 9 out of 10 times they won't answer that camera call. And then they
Oh,
stop.
wow.
Yeah, they stop commenting because I'm like, fuck you, bitch. I want to have a relationship with you, and if you're gonna bannock slap me, that's okay. I'll just put some jam on it, but we're gonna talk. We're gonna be in relationship because you're
Yeah.
assuming a relationship with me to be critical of me. And I'm okay with that, but we gotta talk about it. You can't just
Yeah,
bannock
absolutely.
slap
Like,
me. That's what white people do. That's not what we do. Now I was just waiting.
one of the great things about social media is it can be a format to hold people to account, which is a good thing,
Mm,
you know? And it could also be used as a way to
mm.
slander somebody and just completely wreck somebody's life to the point where they kill themselves because they didn't do
Yeah,
anything.
yeah,
So I think it's one of those platforms where we have to be careful. We have to know the facts,
yeah,
but talking to people and saying, okay, hey, here's my number. Give me a freaking, let's talk in
yeah,
real life.
yeah,
You
for
know,
sure. Yeah,
like,
that's
I
right.
have, I have a lot of people that enjoy the content that I do,
Yeah,
that they like what I do, but I also have like a small percent of people that would love to just drive 150 arrows in the back of my neck, you know? And they try, and it's like, and it's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. And so I can't take that personal. It's like if I took any of that personal, I'd probably die
yeah.
because the more followers you have, the more arrows, right? And
Mhm.
so it's like it's just part of the gig, but at the same time, I wish people would be just a little bit more nicer.
Yeah,
And if they're talking about issues, then talk about the issues,
yeah,
not the person.
yeah, yeah,
Like
exactly.
let's talk about the issues,
Yeah, yeah.
and but I mean, what do you do?
I was
It's
gonna
all
say, all in our communities, though, the social media has actually become a super powerful tool, because no matter how poor a person is, everyone has a smartphone, you know and there are
yeah,
so many places where you can get free Wi-Fi, and we are, because the core of our cultures as Indigenous people is based on the truth that we are all in Danamay Maganak, we're all related,
yeah,
my
yeah,
relations. So we intuitively love being related, and that's why we love social media, because it's
yeah,
an easy way to be related. And that level of accountability, like, I get such a kick out of, you hear people in leadership, and I do want to come back to leadership because you are a leader. But I just want to finish this thought, where you'll hear people say, "Oh, I hate social media. I'm not on social media." Let's see, you're just creeping. You're there. You're just not creating content.
right.
Anyways, I want to ask you your thoughts on about leadership, because I'll just want to share a little bit of what I think. Like, there is, of course, formal leadership. People who are elected to office and that kind of thing, or come to be recognized in the community as a leader or whatever, like elders or knowledge keepers or whatever. And then there's informal leadership, which I think is the category you and I fall into. You know, and I
Right.
I wanted to hear what you think about that.
Well, I think that leadership is important because it's, you know, we do need people to help lead the way. That's really important. And then, I would like to think that, as Anishinaabe people, as Indigenous people, we're leading the fight, to try and save the world.
Mm,
You know, Anishinaabe,
mm,
you know, uh, Migadamawat,
mm,
Ejibak Mazwe, you know, like we're leading the struggles, Nigani Wug, we're leading it,
mhm,
and so leadership is important, and you'll find that in our communities, there's different types of leadership. So you're going to have leadership that are Indian Act leadership, that are, and there's a hierarchy system amongst the tribal councils and all of that,
oh
which
yeah,
I don't agree with. I
mm,
don't agree with that.
mhm,
I don't think that's fair to the people, and I don't think that's fair to our hereditary systems or our traditional systems that are in place.
yeah,
People need to step down a notch and get a grip. But
mhm,
at the same time, I also recognize those are our people, and some of them really try hard to do really good things.
mhm,
But the people have the power on the ground. That's the people power is where it's at,
yeah,
in my opinion. And so
mhm,
you'll see leaders on the ground doing extraordinary things, like pushing the envelopes, like really trying to drive really good things home. And yeah, they're leaders. Leaders are people that don't think about themselves,
yeah,
but will empower other people and build other people up,
mm,
and will, help break the trails that need to be broken, that are not scared
mhm,
of the consequences.
mhm,
And so, for example, let's look at the Indian Act, for example.
mhm,
You know, how many leaders, how many Indian Act chiefs will, you know, make a formal statement saying, I'm going to get out of the Indian Act. It's racist. It was genocidal. I don't want nothing to do with it.
mhm.
They won't do it because they're going to lose their job. They're going to lose their paycheck. And so we have to ask ourselves, would our leaders like Shingwak, would our leaders like Sitting Bear, would our leaders like you know Sitting Bull, would they accept a status card? Would they say, yes, I'll carry this card?
Mhm,
Never in a million years.
mhm,
They wouldn't take it because we're free people.
mhm,
But today our leaders they're not there because they will lose their job. If they're not going to follow the Indian Act, and if they get out of it, they don't get paid.
mhm,
And
mhm,
so the government almost has our people in leadership in hostage situations
mhm,
where they either follow along or they don't get their check.
mhm.
And then that's the real reason why the Indian Act isn't being dismantled, because the Indian Act is paying for the whole show.
Yeah, yeah,
And the political arena for Indigenous people is 1/3 of our economy
yeah,
as Indigenous people. So
yeah,
people are gonna say, yeah, but Isaac, you know, and I'm like, no, 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 let's be real.
mhm,
The reason why, because everything I'm saying about the Indian Act is true. It was used as a genocide. It was used to destroy our lands. It was
mhm,
used to kill kids,
mhm,
kill kids.
mhm,
It was used for the CAS. It started the whole '60s movement.
mhm,
It caused intergenerational trauma that impacted our women and two-spirited people, our men and boys, everybody.
mhm,
It's a bad thing. It's an evil goddamn thing
mhm,
that was created to kill us,
mhm.
and it's working. And I don't understand why more leaders aren't standing up and saying, you know what, enough of this crap. Take your paycheck, shove it where the sun don't shine, and
Mhm,
start a revolution.
mhm. Yeah,
A
that's
revolution where I just it's time. I mean, I just burnt my back the other day because the sun was so hot.
mhm.
First time in my whole life. Like climate change is real. We do not need resolutions. We need revolutions.
I love that. You need to do a T-shirt like that. Revolution, not resolution.
Yeah, I mean, definitely that could be it. But at the same time, we can't always tear down our leadership in that capacity
Oh, yeah,
because those are still our people.
yeah.
But it has to be said.
And so circle back to where you started, which was the choice you made, and the choice that I'm making with my husband is like to build up something rather than focusing on, I get sidetracked the odd time by, what's happening in the news or happening other places or
Me
whatever.
too.
But primarily, my whole 30 years with my husband has been about creating and holding space here at the Nakana Call, which is the link is underneath my name there for people to go look at, because we want to do what we're doing, what you're doing. We want to reclaim and build up positive spaces in our world so that all the trees can do this wherever they are. If like, the trouble is, in so many places the land has been so damaged that it's like, this has become like, where I'm sitting in Tlingit territory, this has become a privilege already. It's a privilege. Where you are in the forest, it's becoming a privilege because of these bigger global issues. And nevertheless, I'm still here. We're still here. You're still where you are, and we're not going to stop being where we're being, so that other people can come here. And my nephew, Joseph, came and helped us do some milling here this year, because we bought a sawmill, and because we're rebuilding our tent frames and doing stuff here for so we can have more friends here. And I said to Joseph, what is coming to the Nakano? What does it mean to you? Because he's been coming here every year since he was a little boy. He said,
Aw.
Auntie, yeah, he said, Auntie, he's in his 20s now. He said, Auntie, I come to the Nakano to reset my brain and my heart. And I was like, wow. It's like, even if our people can only come here for a few weeks or 6 weeks, or, who knows what it takes, each person is different, to hit that reset button and just sort of get grounded in what's important, eh? And being drunk, being high. I'm not necessarily talking about Joseph anymore, but our response to colonization has been to opt out. The grassroots response to colonization is to opt out, and I don't think people realize they're doing that. That it's a form of resistance. That they're When I used to drink and drug, it was because I just couldn't stand it anymore. I just couldn't stand it. Whatever I was experiencing, just couldn't stand it anymore. You know. So we've self-medicated through alcohol and drugs to not feel whatever it is we're experiencing. And so, in a place like this, or in a place like where you are, people can come here and be without the alcohol and drugs, and just the land heals us. Okay,
But
it's
that's exactly. I mean, I don't think I can add to that because that's so perfect. I mean, like even when you started talking about that, that seemed like more powerful than you know ranting about Indian Act politics
oh
because the idea of going back to the land and receiving the help that we need from the land and from each other, that's probably the biggest form of resistance that we can possibly have
yeah,
is returning back to our original state, which is
mm,
a free people on the land healing.
yeah,
The government wants us all buggered up
yeah,
and they want us hurt and they
yeah,
want us to be damaged
yeah, and
and
angry.
they need it and angry and they need us this way because we're easy to control this way.
Yeah,
But if we're actually healing and we're on the land and we're free and
yeah,
here,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
then in their eyes we're the Indian problem again. But in fact, we're a part of the ecological solution and
uh,
we're back on the land.
years ago
And
we
so
were
I
working years ago we were working with environmentalists, and I to help my husband, I support my husband in protecting his territory, and I said to one of the environmentalists, we need a shirt that says endangered species, but on one side you put the salmon, on the other side you put a bear or something, and then you put us as indigenous people in the middle, because
oh wow.
we're an endangered species, you know
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
sense of being connected with who we are. And so you and I both know, and many other people know, that
Yeah.
what's we're in danger of losing is our connection with our lands through ourselves, you know. And it's only by being present out here, you know. The other thing I wanted to say was, you said leaders are necessary to lead the way. And you know, I'm telling you, when we hiked from Atlan to the camp here, I would never make it without my husband in the lead. And you know, that man was so kind that for probably 10 years, he walked in front of me with a damn machete, fucking slashing for days things out of the way so his wife didn't have to step over anything.
Oh, that's so sweet.
It was years before I could actually carry my own weight. You know, I
Yeah.
was bitching and crying and complaining.
Yeah.
Anyway, I
Aw.
digress. I digress. So we
Well,
we still, go ahead. You go ahead. Go ahead.
I'll tell you a story that my grandfather did. My grandmother was a strong woman, and she knew lots about the bush.
Mm.
And when she moved back to the reserve, she was in Toronto. She had a hard time adjusting, and but she also wanted to go fast. She was old.
Yeah.
My grandfather made a boardwalk
Ah,
all the way through the bush, you
wow.
know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
just so
yeah.
that, and then they carried her up on that mountain and they put her to fast up there because she couldn't walk,
Hmm.
you know, and
Hmm.
just so she can fast. And what she said was she wanted to see a lodge built
Hmm.
for the women because the damage that happened to them,
Hmm.
you know, and she wanted to see them heal, and she wanted to see a big lodge where they can heal them, get healed, and all of that. That's what she wanted. That was her vision.
Hmm.
And I think about my grandmother and my mother and my great grandparents, and like they all went through so much, like unspeakable
Yeah.
things, and they saved our nations.
Yeah.
They saved our nations, and I think that we owe such a huge gratitude towards them for
Yeah.
saving us.
Yeah.
You know, and so I wanted to leave you with that.
Okay.
That I think that when we're looking at leadership, you know, our grandmas and our aunties and our moms and all them, they have a place in this time, in this generation. It's different than
Mm.
it was 100 years ago because now we have climate change.
Mm-hmm.
Things are different, and the spirits are talking to the women
Mm.
and saying, carry a staff, do this, do that, do
Yeah.
this, do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And a lot of the old traditionalists are saying, well, that's not how we do things. But you
Mm-hmm.
know what? Hey, we're at the goddamn almost the end of the world here. And the spirits are talking to the women here. We better listen and support them in what their visions are,
I
you know?
just love you.
You know,
Hey,
and
we're at the goddamn end of the world here.
so we better be supporting their visions and their dreams.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, that's
Yeah.
the that's what I
Yeah.
believe. And
I want to start. I started using a hashtag a couple of days ago called, I put hashtag Indigenous Me Too. And I did an interview this morning with Indian Country Today out of the States, where they
yeah,
said, well, what is that? They saw the hashtag and they wanted to know what I meant by that. And I said, well, you know, if you look at the Me Too movement, it was started by a Black woman to end sexual violence against girls and women, Black girls and Black women. And that's awesome. And it started like in 2006, 7, took off when the movie stars got involved and whatever. But I said, Indigenous Me Too is really about all of us saying, that's enough. Like what you just did. I said, the most important thing is for our men, because not all our men are bad. They've been indoctrinated through the colonial system that, you know, all they have to do is show up with their penis and they're in charge. And I'm like, no, actually, you need some brains and
ta-da!
I'm the leader.
Here I am.
And you need so much more than that to be a leader. And so
Right.
for us, for me, Indigenous Me Too is about restoring the respect and the sanctity of the roles we each choose. and having that equilibrium, that relationship restored, and at the
Yeah.
beginning it is going to mean, for some of us women particularly, and men too, like I know Indian men in leadership who are sexually harassed and whatever by Indian women because they want to climb on that chief's coattail, and
Right.
it's all messed up. And so it's about unmessing it. I'm just inventing lots of words these days.
No,
Unmess.
I do it all the time.
I want to unmess it, so that.
Yeah.
And so at the beginning, though, we need to draw the line and say, no, that's it. I'm drawing the line right here. I drew the line. No, you
You
don't cross.
know, as an Indigenous man that was, sexually abused by
Mm,
family and by others, you know, it was hard to know what the hell was right, what was wrong.
mm,
And because there was so much growing up with sexual abuse, everybody's abusing everybody all the time. And when
mm,
you grow up in that, right,
mm,
and you're, it's hard to know. Like when I was a father at the age of 19,
mm.
I actually called somebody and I said, is it okay if I wipe my daughter's bum?
Yeah, yeah.
Because I thought, am I going to get in trouble? Am I going to get in, like, is the
No,
CS going to end up on my goddamn door and take the baby away because I touched the baby?
yeah,
I'm just trying to wipe the baby's bum.
yeah.
And so there was a whole learning. So I got these books, like trying to how to parent and then about relationships and all of that. So I had to go to sexual abuse therapy for 2.5 years
Mm, yeah,
because I needed to be the healthiest person that I could be for my family and for my community.
yeah, exactly.
And and for me it was a hard thing
Yeah.
because I'm one of those guys where it's like I don't want to do that, you know, but 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 I realized that what people in my community, my people need me at my best.
Oh, I love that.
And I needed to change some of the stuff that was going inside of me. I needed
Mm,
to heal some of the broken parts.
mm,
And so going through that therapy and going to ceremonies and doing all of that really helped
mm,
fix a lot of broken parts.
mm.
And now I'm an asset to my community,
Beautiful.
you know, as opposed to bringing a deficit in there, you know.
Beautiful.
So it's like, and I think men have a responsibility to do that, you
Mm,
know. I mean,
mm.
everybody has a responsibility, but it's the men that are being the arseholes right now, you know. So it's like, you know,
My goodness.
um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. But those are
Okay.
just my thoughts. Those
I
are just
love
my
you, Isaac.
thoughts.
Okay, we're at almost at the top of the hour. Is there any like one last thing you want to share with us, and then I do a last thing, and then we'll end.
I just want to say that when we, put our differences aside and when
Mm,
we work together for a common goal,
mm,
we can achieve anything.
mm,
And that it's so easy to get caught up on little things. But I think it's better if we just let them slide sometimes,
mm,
and we just look at the big picture
mm,
because the spectrum of change is huge. It's big. And
mhm,
not everybody's going to have the same ideas. Like not everybody's going to agree with me on the Indian Act, but
mhm.
I will still work with them because I need them. I need their perspective and
Yeah,
I'm not always right.
yeah,
And so when you have a big spectrum of ideas and thoughts moving forward, that's when we become powerful. When we have the tolerance enough to respect other people and their decisions and their choices.
amen. Yeah.
And to be freaking kind. We just need to be kind.
Yeah, yeah, to
Yeah.
be, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So
Okay.
I'll leave it there.
Okay, and I just for the listeners, I've invited Isaac to come back, maybe even once a month or whatever, and because I love this conversation and I love you, and you look like my boy, so I love looking at you because you look like my son, and I love laughing. We love laughing. Nothing's sacred. Everything will be laughed about. the most, the most. Oh, I can't believe we're laughing about that. But so I think it's one of our ways that we keep ourselves humble. That you know, kego kichinendas, okay, and like don't think you're so big, you know. So
Right, right.
it occurred to me that Brave Indigenous Conversations is about earrings. And so I have a serious beaded earring addiction. So I decided that,
Cool.
I know, I decided every podcast I'm going to feature earrings that I've paid for, or, you know, people have given me. I don't want gifts. I'm not saying I want gifts, but these ones here are made by my daughter, my adopted daughter, Amelia Carling.
Aw.
Yeah, she's Desheton. She's from the Split Tail Beaver Clan, Tucker Tlingit First Nation, and on the Crow side. And she's an amazing artist. And her beading, she says it's what's keeping her here in this physical body.
Aw.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. All right, I know. All right, I'm just gonna end the broadcast, and then you and I will say goodbye, Becca.
Okay.